Thank you for being our first guest.
Of
Welcome
course.
to the Grind Podcast. I'm Joey, and this is...
I'm Tessabella.
Well, perfect, Tessabella. Tell us a little bit. What are you doing in San Diego today?
Well, San Diego was a little bit of a vacation /
Okay.
work trip. That's kind of my way I like to travel, is do a little bit of work and then find a way to make it fun too, so you enjoy the whole process.
And like San Diego, you have to. Like,
Yeah.
best beaches. We got some of the best food, but you're staying in Temecula?
Yeah, I've never really done the whole wine country thing.
Okay.
So we did wine country. We were in a hot air balloon this morning. And all kinds of stuff going on.
Now, is that like a sketchy hot air balloon? Or are
I
you up there
actually-
and you're like, get me the fuck on the ground?
I feel pretty safe on it, but we did see a different hot air balloon that like kept hitting the ground and kind of bouncing, and it was like shaking in the air. I was like, I'm so glad we're not on that, guys.
Oh, man. Well, at least it wasn't like a 6 a.m., here's a bottle of wine, get on this hot air balloon.
Exactly. They wait till you land, hopefully in one piece, and then they give you a glass of champagne.
And you're like, cool, I want to get my heart rate down.
Yeah.
So wineries out there, which ones did you go to yesterday?
So we're staying at Europa.
Europa.
And we went to Wilson
Creek.
Yeah, that one was our first place. It was okay. And then Altisma or something.
Altisma, yeah.
That one I loved.
Okay.
Everything about that was amazing.
Have you heard of Peltzer?
Peltzer. I have not, no. I
Okay,
don't think so.
Peltzer, write that down. Go to
Okay.
Peltzer today. It's
Okay.
like a family favorite.
Yeah.
My wife gets it delivered to the house. Her sister sends it all the time.
Okay,
So
cool.
good.
We were flying over one called like Weens or something.
Weens, I'm not sure.
And the guys that were flying the hot air balloon said that was a great one. So
that was
we
a
might
great one.
have to check
And that
one
guy's a
out.
reliable source because
Yeah.
he is the hot air balloon.
Well, but then actually he did say that his favorite wines are like the super sweet. So maybe I won't take his advice because that's not really my
Yeah,
style.
no. It's like, it's a good intro to wine.
Yeah.
But,
More like a juice box at that point.
well, speaking of juice
Yeah.
box, let's go to your childhood.
Okay.
This whole reason
what a
why
segue.
I know, right? It's the salesman in me. I can take anything and spin
Incredible.
it. So going from the grind, we want to
Mm-hmm.
get down to who you are at your core. So childhood, did you already know from like the get-go, elementary school, I'm going to go sell something, I'm going to go market myself? How did that happen?
I mean, I would say all of the signs were there from a young age. Like literally at family dinners and stuff, I was always hustling people. I was like, I'll give you a back massage for a quarter. Like I was always figuring out something I could do to make money. I was so obsessed with making money. I had this little like ATM toy that I liked to play with, and I would just put my like allowance or whatever money I had in there. And then I remember I opened it up. I was probably 9, and I had like $300 in there. And my parents were like, "Where'd that come from?" And I was like, "I've just been stocking up."
You're like compounding interest.
Yeah.
Don't you know what that is?
Hello. So, yeah, I would say the signs were there, but I definitely didn't know where I was headed. I wanted to be on the SWAT team, so I didn't think I was going towards sales.
Yeah, SWAT team to sales. I mean, my wife is on the police side, so having
Oh,
that
cool.
angle, I mean, complete opposites.
Totally.
So was there a point where you just said, hey, yeah, this SWAT thing, probably not it. I'm leaning towards that sales side.
I don't know that there was one pivotal moment. I always liked things that were like high energy and kept me entertained. And so in my head, I thought the SWAT team, I was like, I really want to come down from the ceilings.
Get on the ground!
Yeah, that was my thought process. But then it shifted a little bit. I started out in like restaurants and that kind of stuff too when I was very young. My dad owned a bunch of different restaurants growing up, so kind of always was around that and around people and whatnot. And then I got into the more street side of selling things, and then I was like, oh wait, I'm pretty good at this.
You're like, wait a second, I can make this make more money for me.
Exactly. And then so I also found quickly that I liked being in kind of like leadership positions. Like even at my early jobs in restaurants and coffee shops and a tanning salon, like I very quickly moved into either a management role or like a shift lead or whatever they titled you at the time. But I liked that added responsibility and kind of being able to like lead people, so to say. And so I think that sparked it for me more than anything, was like the idea of being able to kind of like guide and mentor other people too was a cool place that I wanted to be. And I was like, well, I have to get to a certain level in order to do that, right?
Yeah, it's something like for the listeners too, like you can't just walk into a leadership role.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you could, that would be the best thing in the world, because all of a sudden you're like, hey, I got no credibility, no history, but I'm going to tell you what to do today.
Yeah, that doesn't usually go over too well if
No.
you go into it with that mindset.
But it's really cool hearing that it's not just one industry. Because a lot of people are like, yeah, you know what? I sold cars. I went from a salesperson to a manager, and now I did that. But hearing, hey, I went from restaurants, coffee shops, and tanning salon. Now it's running your own business.
There you go.
It's something that's kind of in you.
Yeah.
So looking at this whole lifestyle that you've created for yourself, Do you think it's something like, hey, I was born to do this, or something just manifested in me at a young age and I was like, this is my shit, I'm going to rock it?
I do sort of think it's a combination a little bit. I definitely know. I mean, I've been extremely competitive since I was very young. I grew up with a bunch of brothers, and I was like, I always beat them at everything. I played a bunch of sports. Like, that was the stuff that I liked to do. I liked to win. So I think that kind of leads into running a business pretty well, because obviously you have to have like some degree of tenacity and wanting to beat other people. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of like float around.
Yeah, right? You're going to be like, hey, I'm okay with being second or third place.
I'm like, no. The second that somebody first told me that I was like the top of something, I'm like, okay, well, now I want to be even better than the top, and then I want to own the people who were the top, and then I want to do all this other kind of stuff. So it definitely evolves quickly when you get kind of addicted to like winning, really.
And now a lot of people get this confused. Is it addicted to money, or is it addicted to the success that money brings?
Okay, I mean, I do love money. I have it tattooed on my finger. Unfortunately, that wasn't my best decision, but it is there for life.
Yeah.
But I do think it's definitely a lot more addicted to what money can open up door-wise, like opportunities, connections, the amount of conversations I can have now with people because they see an opportunity, both good and bad, but they see you as somebody who could be a strategic partner in new things. And so I have new things brought to me.
That's why we're here too.
Exactly, like all the time, which is really cool to form those new relationships, to just create a lot of cool lifestyle stuff for yourself. So obviously the money's great, but it's more so what it brings.
Starting with the back massages for a quarter to now where you're at now, if you want to tell the viewers what you do now. Well,
also another quick piece of that was lemonade stands. I did a ton of the lemonade stands, and then I was like, okay, how can I monetize? How can I make more money per customer? And so I would take the lemonade and I would mix it with some flower petals and cross sell that as perfume. And so really what I was doing was just selling this. I was just selling like sticky lemonade that people were going to wear as perfume.
They're just putting on their wrists and like bees are just flocking to it all day.
Probably terrible, but in my head I was like, oh, now my value per customer is not just for that 50-cent lemonade. They're also paying $5 for perfume. So.
Which is good. I mean, if we're continuing on that, the ability to spin to sell.
Yeah.
So basic sales 101 is you don't bring a product A to client B and assume it's going to work. You have to find a way that it works for everyone. So let's jump into real estate. And if you can't tell, I'm very good at the sales spinning.
Yes, love it.
Jumping into real estate, did you ever sell houses?
Oh, I did. Absolutely. I got licensed. Let's see. I started actually on the investment side, so I kind of had a different route than I think some people do. But I was going to ASU. I was playing golf and working. I was managing this coffee shop, and I was like obsessed and fixated. I know it's so silly, but watching HGTV, I loved it. And the couple hours that I was, I know. Everyone roll your eyes.
Can we cut it now?
But I really did. I loved, and there's kind of a roundabout reason that that's important, but I watched it and I was super interested in the idea of flipping houses.
Okay.
And so naturally being at the coffee shop, I knew everyone. Like I could talk to anybody, which was interesting because I had a lot of social anxiety. I was very shy, but there was something about, I've always believed that everybody has something that makes them an instant extrovert. And for me, that was it. Like talking about real estate and talking about it before I even knew anything about it made me this instant extrovert. Like people would say, they're like, oh, I can see you light up when you talk about it. And
you're like, well, don't tell me too much because I'm going to be insecure about it.
I know. I'm like, don't ask me too many questions because I don't know anything I'm talking about.
Ask me these questions here. This is my wheelhouse. I can take care of that.
Outside
Anything
of that,
else?
I'm just going to steer you back to those couple questions. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to flip houses. I enrolled in the University of Google. Was always my favorite place to go. Yep. I was going to ASU also, but you didn't learn anything there.
You partied, that's about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much all. And so I literally watched a bunch of like YouTube videos, read a bunch of forums, and then I said, I'm just going to try and talk to anyone and everyone who will listen. And I got connected to like a friend of a friend of a friend who was doing hot shotting and oil rigs in like one of the Dakotas. I don't even know. But they said he has some money. And so I was like, okay, well, great. I don't. So that's great. And we got on a Skype call and I kind of like pitched this concept.
Wait, Skype was a thing?
Yes. This was like 2013, 2014. So yeah, Skype was still a big thing. Zoom was not quite popular yet. And so I literally made a PowerPoint presentation, all the slides like transitioned out, little spinning, all that kind of stuff.
All the colors matched.
Oh yeah, it was perfectly branded. And I pitched him this whole concept of basically like funding that first flip, and he said yes. And I was like, oh,
that means I actually have to do it now.
Yeah, I had prepared so much for everything up to that moment. I didn't really think about what would happen if he said yes or no. And so I was like, okay, I'll get back to you. And
how do I find a property to flip?
How do I flip a house? So secured funding first before everything else. And then went out and I flipped houses in like Central Phoenix, which at the time you could get something for, 70, 80,000. Now you can't find anything under like 300. But yeah, I got really engrossed in that world, and then it quickly shifted also towards getting a traditional license, selling houses, was the official real estate partner of the Phoenix Suns, but it was when they sucked, so no one cared.
Everyone's like, oh, that's a cool accolade, but no one there has a contract.
Literally. They gave me a bunch of tickets, and I say free tickets, but like we were definitely paying for that in a lot of different ways. And we could use that as marketing collateral, right? To collect leads and stuff.
Absolutely.
Nobody even wanted to go. No. I couldn't pay somebody to take those tickets from us.
Devin Booker wasn't there.
They were like, yeah, no, I don't care.
Like, who are they playing? Maybe that will bring them there.
Yeah. So that was a fun experience, but definitely did do a lot of the traditional real estate side. I didn't love it. No. But I was good at it. I liked a lot of the other pieces of it.
I feel like that's normal for a lot of people that were in real estate. Yeah. Like, I'm the first one to admit I love selling houses, but I also hate it.
Yes.
Which is a total contradiction owning a brokerage, because it's like, it's my bread. It's what I do. But when you get into real estate, a lot of people are like, I'm going to focus on this one thing. They do everything else, and then they scale it back and say, wow, everything else sucks.
Yeah.
I want to find this one thing. So it's rare, like, hearing, hey, I went into flipping, I did everything else, and was like, eh. It wasn't quite it.
Yeah.
So when you were doing regular sales, were you doing all the stuff that we do daily of like the door knocking, cold calls?
Was I ever? My first ever day door knocking, actually. Well, I guess the first door knocking was more when I was investing.
Yep.
Because I would get those like pre-foreclosure lists and I'd go and knock doors. And my first day, I was like wearing heels, this whole thing. And
trying to be all cute, walking down the street.
Trying to be all cute. It's also the summer in Arizona.
Ooh, no.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh. It was brutal. But I remember my boyfriend at the time said, like, you're literally never going to get anybody to say yes to this. And I was like, okay, well,
that's that competitive side.
Yeah. So then I just didn't come home till I did. And it worked. I had a couple of guns pulled on me. That was a good time. I feel like I experienced all sides of it, especially South Phoenix is like, that's pretty hood. So.
Well, what people don't get, if like the TikToks, Instagram reels of people like going to the doors, like the window washing guys, like I've had that too, where you hear a shotgun and you're like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, you're like, I don't think this is a good idea.
And you're like, my commission on this would be like $8,000. My life's worth more than that. I'm gonna get the hell out of here.
Yeah, but also at the time, I didn't really have much else going on, much else to my name. So I was like, maybe it's not worth more than that. You hear like 5 pit bulls back there just snarling at you, and you're like, all right, I guess we're here.
But it's like
Fingers
the mindset
crossed.
too. So like at that point, you're like, I'm going to get it. But like now you'd probably look at it and be like, I'm going to bet that's a tenant. It's not even worth knocking.
Yeah. Once you start to actually understand what the situation is, you realize there's a little better ways to go around it. But definitely did the door knocking, cold calling, which I also hated. But I feel like anytime I found something that I didn't like, I made it my mission to get really good at it, because that's usually the reason that you don't like it. It's because you're not good at it. So then you say you don't like it because you're just like afraid to actually do it.
And like that confidence thing is a huge issue. Like getting people that are like thrown into sales like yourself, like you find something you suck at. I always say that's what you double down on.
Oh, yeah.
Because you'll find the most profit from it, because you're literally at zero. You'll find a way to get good at it, and then instantly it's converting.
100%.
And like with cold calls, I mean... Like, I bet there's some good conversations you've had, and they're yelling at you and cussing at you, and you're like, I just want to make money.
Like, please just let me list your house.
So how long did you sell houses traditionally for?
From 2014 to like 2018, so probably 4 years.
Okay, now let's get into the fun stuff. So what happened in 2018 when you said, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore?
Well, 2018, my life really kind of hit the fan. I had been previously selling real estate with a business partner of mine who was also like my life partner, and everything all tied together. And that really went up in flames. And something that you don't ever, like, you can't really prepare for is literally your face on billboards and everybody knowing you as this like paired up couple. And then all of a sudden, it's very public knowledge that it's not. And so that like threw me into this situation where I kind of had to decide what's going to happen next, because I cannot stay working in this business with somebody who I can hardly even like look at. And the marketing side had always been my thing. I had always done that on my own, separately, and a lot of that evolved because it was where I found a lot of success in real estate. I was like, I knew that if I doubled down on social media, I started sharing my story of doing all this stuff from the second I started.
Okay.
And as much as I loved HGTV and the pretty side, I was like, I'm going to show the shitty stuff too.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I'm going to show like when things don't work out very well, and when you make a bad decision, and when you don't profit on a flip and stuff like that. And I think I built a lot of trust and credibility within the audience, and then people wanted me to do that for them too. And so that was sort of how LeadFlow was born, honestly, was just doing it for myself and then helping a few others, and then realizing there's really something powerful to showing up on social media. And so that piece was always mine, and I was like, okay, that's been the piece I've loved this whole time. I'm going to double down on that even more. And so that was kind of the Cliff Notes version of how that all shifted.
That sounds like it was like a 12 paragraph 30 chapter book, and you're just like, let's just give you the short.
But let's just keep to the point here.
Absolutely. But looking at it on a marketing angle with LeadFlow, I mean, that's how we know each other. You help me quite a bit with my social media. At what point did you realize, hey, you know what? This is what I've been doing for myself, but I could actually turn this into a profitable agency to impact others?
So that actually happened alongside all of the other pieces of, doing traditional sales and stuff. So it's probably about 2015 that I got started. And again, it was a very slow process because that was never the goal going into it. It was that I loved doing it for myself. I was pretty good at it. And then I think it started, I had maybe a title rep or a lender locally say, hey, could you come like teach a class as they do? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I came and I taught a little class on like Instagram or something like that. And then it kind of continued to evolve. More people wanted to know about it. I put together this little ghetto course online. Like it was pretty embarrassing, but I put it together. People learned a little bit from that. I think I had like close to 100 people
That's awesome.
That bought that course and that wanted to learn it. And I was like, okay, there really is kind of something here. And obviously, the more that you're around agents and that you experience it firsthand, you know that social media is a full-time job, especially if you want to really do it right. It takes a lot of time, effort, energy, and typically, as an agent, you're already wearing every single hat. You're your own assistant, you're your own sales manager, you're your own, all of these departments is pretty much you in the beginning, and marketing or your social media will typically fall a little lower on that totem pole.
Absolutely, because it's like, do I want to call this person that requested information, or do I want to make a story?
Yeah. I mean, preference-wise, I would probably rather sit there and make my Instagram story, but it's not going to drive the business directly. It has like a longer, turnover. And so we found definitely a way to help people do that, and in a way that was customized too, because there's lots of services that'll send you the exact same post and caption that they sent to 3,000 other agents.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's obvious. But so like a custom solution that was still cost effective and that helped people recapture some of that time of their own was... I found a little niche there, and it's challenging. It's definitely hard.
I look at it from my point of view that, granted, I use you guys, but I can't lean on only LeadFlow content. So you have a bunch of people that I bet come to you and say, hey, I want your lowest package, but I want to post every day with stories. And it's like, there still has to be work on your side. Yeah. So what would be a number one tip to an agent right now who is getting into social media the first time and they don't know where to begin? What would you tell them?
I think the biggest piece is putting yourself on there. There's such a lack of people who are comfortable and actually take the initiative. Like, you do a great job with your videos and stuff.
You should have seen my first videos, though. They sucked.
Same. I actually intentionally leave my first videos up
Me too.
so that I can use that as an example and so people can see it. My very first video is on Facebook, and literally I tried to put text on the screen. It's coming like in across my face, like halfway through. I'm sitting on a folding chair in my kitchen. Like, it is so bad. And I cringe just like even thinking about it. But that's really where it started. Yep. And that was a prime example, like we talked about, of things that you don't like doing. And so you kind of force yourself to do them. I was petrified of getting on video. Oh, yeah. I hated the idea of doing videos of myself. And so it actually started with, I was like, okay, well, I hate this. So how can I break through that as quickly as possible? I did a 30-day like Facebook Live challenge that I just made up for myself.
That sounds literally terrifying.
30 days in a row, I went live on Facebook, and I actually got a bunch of deals out of it too.
That's awesome.
Which was just, at the beginning, nobody was watching them whatsoever. And then after a little while, you kind of start to build a little traction. And there's nothing harder than going live. So I was like, if I can do this live, then I can do a pre-recorded video, no problem. And truly, after those 30 days, I was like, yeah, I guess I can do this.
You can do this.
I still stutter sometimes or like trip over my words or whatever, but
that's the authenticity.
Also,
as I trip over my words, authenticity.
That was perfect timing. But that really is part of it. Like, it humanizes it. If somebody sees you just being
robotic,
organically who you are, it helps them connect to you a little bit more. And I want someone to meet me and think I'm the same that I am online.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus like this robot online, and then you hear me in person and I can't get a sentence out.
Like, my biggest critique is that I cuss sometimes, and I already know I've done it in here and I just don't know it. But like on the video, I set my tripod at my desk, throw it on airplane mode, and I just record myself working.
Yeah.
And randomly I'll be like, oh, and say that, send it to my team, they cut it up, and I'm like, oh, it actually worked pretty well.
It's honestly great. I think that's a big piece of it too, is setting yourself up for easy ways to shoot content. Because if you have to like go and set up the light, do this whole thing, most people won't do it because you'll find a million other things you could do during that time.
Like, oh, I gotta walk my dog. I'm gonna do that, and then I'll get to this.
Exactly. But if you've got it pretty much set up where you could just hit record, then it's a lot more likely to do it. So I think that's a big piece.
Well, so going with lead flow, sending people content, giving them ideas, what have you found internally that has kept you motivated with your business?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
That's what I'm here for. Only good questions today.
Found internally. Well, I do think that I really like creating solutions for people and hearing. I've always been sort of a natural problem solver. I love to find ways to make things easier, more fun, more effective, more efficient. Of course, that typically leads to more profitable as well.
Yes.
So when you can help other people find that too, it's nice and rewarding. But I feel like I've been on all sides of this industry, especially for being pretty young in it still. I've seen a lot of the different angles of the industry. I was not just like a marketing agency that thought, oh, I'll prey on real estate agents because they need to pay for things.
And you know they don't have time.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And that happens a lot. Or there's the agent who had like one, decent year. They made about $100,000 in commission. And then they're like, yeah, I'm going to teach everyone how to do this.
Oh, God.
And so I wanted to not be either of those. But I did think it's important to be able to bring what I have experienced in and show and guide people through it, whether that's through practically taking them and doing it for them.
Grab them by the ear and say, follow me.
Like, come on. But so there's a lot of combination between like showing and helping that really keeps me motivated. I get really fulfilled like teaching other people.
Now, does that also stem to the people that you have working with you?
Yes, that part is also very important. We have a very young, like hungry team of people too, and you can see when they get excited, when something feels like rewarding, when they've helped someone, when they get good feedback or a good review or something. You can see how much that lights someone up, and I'm like, all right, now you've got that addiction kind of.
And the
like,
little mama bear in you is like, thank God.
Yeah, they really are. They call me mom in the office, so I'm like, they're like my little babies, even though
I
I'm
get that
older
too.
younger than all of them.
Well, can I ask, how old are you?
I'm 26. Yeah.
Older. I'm 27.
Okay.
But like, I don't get called dad, and everyone's older than me. Like, I wish I would.
It's maybe a little different dynamic, I guess. I have an office full of girls, so they're like, oh, mommy.
I got half and half. I think if the girls called me, that'd be weird.
Yeah, it might be a little odd.
Guys, I would be like, that's a little strange. We should probably talk about that.
Yeah.
So
on the hot air balloon today, actually, the guy, he like radioed down to the ground guy that kind of follows you to pick you guys up after. And he goes, yeah, Big Daddy, we're about to land in this. And we're all kind of like, wait, did he just call him Big Daddy?
You're like, is that the name of the balloon, or is that the guy on the ground?
I'm like, I don't know what you guys do in your spare time, but that was odd.
Well, speaking of odd, what I think is odd that you're working on is you have this digital real estate. What is that?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked. I love digital real estate. And every time somebody hears it, they think like metaverse, crypto, NFTs, all this kind of stuff, because that's very hot and, buzzwords right now. But digital real estate is actually a concept that's been around for quite a while. It's rank and rent websites.
Okay.
So basically very comparable to like a rental property, physical property, where you would own the property, you'd put a tenant in there, you might have a property manager, but you're collecting a little bit of profit off that. We build a landing page that's basically unbranded. Maybe it would be like San Diego Concrete Company, and we rank it on Google, and then people are searching for that service. They land on this landing page that's got all this information, and it's pretty robust. It's built out. We work with like trusted vendors in that area and get their actual testimonials and videos and photos, so it looks legit. And then people put in their information, and those leads that we now received, we can then rent and sell back to concrete providers. And so essentially that concrete provider is the tenant on this website, getting the leads.
How did you find this?
So it's actually, like I said, it's been around for a long time. Most people that do it are just like an individual nerd sitting in their basement doing it for themselves, making some money off of it. And it's never been offered as like a done for you service, but it's very passive and it's very valuable. I do love things that can be genuinely like a win-win-win for everybody. So a lot of those vendors that are buying and renting those leads from us, that's like the most valuable thing for their business.
Absolutely.
We have people who've said, you've literally saved our business because we weren't able to consistently fuel that company before. And then as the people who own the sites, they're pumped because they're getting some rent that they are literally doing nothing for.
And I think it's pretty cheap to get one, right?
It is. Yeah, it's $7,000 for one. So again, I compare it to a property. If you could buy a house for $7,000 that rented, and their average rents are about $500 a month is typically what somebody's paying for that.
And are they paying that forever?
Yeah, I mean, as long as they want the leads. And honestly, a lot of times we can scale it up much larger than that. We have some that are doing $6,000-$7,000 a month just off of one individual site.
All right, let's cut this now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
With that lead flow, and you also do speaking. Let's get into that. How did you find that avenue, and how do you even have time for it?
Yeah, speaking is, that started probably right around 2018, 2019. I always wanted to. I would watch videos of people and be like, that is so cool. But also the idea of getting up on a stage in front of people made me like paralyzed.
See, we're the opposite. I love being up there.
I do now. I still get a little scared,
You're a little shaky.
But it was pretty petrifying. But again, something that scares me. I'm like, I'm going to get really good at that. So I started just doing some kind of for free. I was like, yeah, any opportunity I can find to speak, whether it's at just like board of realtors or whatever, or even at smaller classes and stuff like that. I was really open to speaking at pretty much anything. It started out too, I told a lot of people, I was like, as long as you fly me out somewhere, I'll do it. Like put on an event, use me as the like main person to track people in. I did do a lot of like, people wanted it for EXP. They were like, we'll use it as like a recruiting event, whatever. So I did a lot of different ones like that. And then word starts to kind of get out once somebody sees that you actually, have value to share and that you can actually kind of engage the audience. I think once you get into that speaker circuit, it's a lot easier to kind of stay in that and continue to grow within it. But breaking into it can be challenging for sure.
And it's a funny thing because for me, it's something I always wanted to get into. And my first speaking engagement was a nationwide, it was like 2,500 people for a brokerage, and now my next one's for 10,000 for a state convention.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And it's like these little circuits and the big circuit. It's like, where do you even begin? So like if someone reached out to you today, lead flow, and was like, hey, I think I have something that would be valuable. How do I get into any type of speaking? What would you tell them?
I do think that the big first piece to understand is like when you get up there, your goal is not to take somebody from start to finish of learning a concept.
No.
And you also have to understand that pretty much any room you speak to, there's going to be someone in there who like doesn't even know how to turn their own phone on. And then there's somebody who probably knows more about that topic than you do.
Yes.
And so you have to find a way to deliver your message or teach your lesson or whatever the goal is in a way that's high level enough that people won't get bored, but it's also not just talking to a room and they're all staring at you like deer in the headlights.
Yeah, you're not like, so you're going to open Instagram, hit post.
Yeah, I'm like, we're not going to go through this whole step by step, but I want to make sure, that it's not so over their heads. And that can be a really challenging thing to do.
Absolutely.
Especially if somebody's got a cool concept. They're like, yeah, I want to get up there and teach everything and show every little nitty gritty piece of it. So I think mastering kind of what you're saying first is super important. And then I would say just getting in and doing them from small, like put on a little local event or partner with a few people that do, and then go and grow from there. Because also you can leverage the content from those smaller events to then send that off to some larger ones. And they're like, oh, wow, that was pretty good.
And that's content they should film, send to your team at Lead Flow.
There we go.
You guys will cut it up,
we'll
all
send
of it.
Out. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's so cool. I mean, having you today is awesome.
Thank you.
It's really cool hearing how you kind of started from the massages, the lemonade stands to where you're at now. What's the future hold? What are you looking at?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question too. Look at you go. I would say the future, I have kind of this other piece of it too that's a lot more on the coaching side for agents. And my goal or my vision is always to be that like one step place where if you want to be successful in real estate, you have to be a part of what we're doing. We've got the best solutions for lead generation. We've got the best solutions for social media, coaching, support. And obviously people need support in other areas. They may not need social, but they need the other sides or whatever. So the goal is really that I'm known and recognized as being the one place to go if you want to go to that next level and actually have like scalability in real estate, not just dabble, not just be in it for a year or something like that, but like actually take it seriously and treat it like a real career and profession, not just something that you're like, oh, I heard I could get a $10,000 check.
Well, it's, what is it? 80% of agents are out after 2 years.
Yeah.
So like you make it past that 2 years, you've done something right.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people are just by the seat of their pants. Yeah. It's like, hey, my uncle has this listing for me that I sold that house. That neighbor found out I sold it. And all of a sudden I've got buyers from that. I posted once on Instagram and now I got a multi-unit client. But believe it or not, you have to systemize a business behind it. So that's pretty cool on the coaching side. Is this something that you're already rolling out now? And
it's something we've been doing now for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. I have a partner in that. He's great on the sales side. And so we kind of teamed up with like social media, sales, all these different pieces. And then I really try to talk a lot about like self-mastery too, that it's got to be something where you have, you know, an understanding of how to be the best version of yourself too, because it does all start and end with you, especially if you have goals of building a team or helping people on a large scale. If you aren't the right person internally, it's not going to work. It's going to crumble because like you're constantly going through this, you know, life is cyclical. You're always going to go through these different challenges and changes. And if you haven't set the foundation of yourself,
you're fucked.
Yeah, it's not working. It's not going to work.
So business side, all that's going on. Is this something that you're also going to teach real estate investing for agents themselves? Because that's something at Velocity. We want all our agents to invest in properties. We want everyone to flip. Are you guys doing that as well?
Absolutely. My goal is that most agents learn that by being on the traditional like agency side, you've opened up a new door for yourself to have more of an understanding of how to do that, to also create the money to be able to do that. And we always say with real estate investing, you can contribute your time, your knowledge, or your money. Those are pretty much the three, or I guess like you're just pure hard sweat and grit. And those are like the couple things that you can contribute. You don't need all of them. No. Many of my first deals, I had no money. In fact, the keys I got to that first property, I had negative 36 cents in my bank account. My water and like power got shut off. What happened
to that $300 that you had as a kid?
Yeah, that went downhill once I got into college and I learned that you could like buy drinks and stuff.
Like there goes everything. But that's cool. So that first deal, negative bank account to where you're at now.
Yeah. And so I was like, at the time, I said, nobody is going to work harder than I will, and that's what I can contribute. And Google taught me real well, so I've got a bit of knowledge too. And so I can harness those two pieces of the equation. I just need somebody else. And I had the time, wasn't doing anything better with my life at that point. So as long as somebody would put some money in, it would help. And so I want agents to understand that they can use like traditional sales to give themselves maybe a little bit more of a nest egg to learn how to invest in real estate, to actually have longevity in what they're doing. You know, that way too, you have an exit. Most agents never think about what's ever going to happen. They're going to be that 65-year-old agent that's driving around showing rentals.
And they're stuck.
Yeah.
And it's like something we talk about internally. Like right now, my wife and I are buying out a state. Everyone knows. Everyone knows the numbers. Everyone knows the rents because it's something you have to know. I think we've actually hit on a lot in our short time. Is there anything that you kind of want to wrap up or let the new listeners know to this new podcast about you or what you're working on?
No, I mean, I don't think there's any big announcements. I wish I had something cool to share. I should have prepared like a cool teaser, but no, I think it's just important. I know like the concept of this podcast and the grind and all this kind of stuff. I think it's important for everyone to understand, like, it doesn't matter where the story started. It just matters where you want it to head. And I think that thinking of it in that kind of perspective or with that lens on gives a lot of freedom. And I know agents especially, I'm assuming that's going to be a lot of the people tuning into this kind of stuff. I think that agents especially get in their own way, or maybe they were super successful in something else and have somehow shifted into real estate, and that same success doesn't follow them, and it's discouraging. So I think it's like kind of freeing yourself from the chains of whatever happened, good or bad, and just allowing that momentum to keep pushing you forward. So,
and knowing that the best way to succeed in real estate is falling on your face because you're falling forward.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Well, I always say a step in the wrong direction is still a step in the right direction because it showed you what not to do. So there's really no wrong direction that you can head as long as you're still moving and staying in momentum.
Well, that's an awesome way to wrap it up. Thank you for
Yes.
coming down. I know that you're here on vacation. Spending a little time with us was awesome. Thanks
you
for
so
being our first
much.
guest.
Yes, of course.
One day